There are 1.1 million students in the New York City public school system. 1.1 million students out of 8.5 million residents of this city. So 4 million people are affected by the schools, at least directly by families, 3.5 million. It's got a budget bigger than half the state budgets in this country, the New York public school system. A budget bigger than half the budgets of states in this country. Just think about what that means. And yet, the need for programs like this is never ending. Why? Because we let the kids out at 3 o'clock. 1.1 million students out at 3 o'clock. They should be in school till 5 o'clock. They shouldn't be out of school for 2.5 months or 2 months. What do they do in the summer? And the ones who are not advantaged fall behind over that summer because they're not getting schooled. You can drop out of New York City schools. You can drop out of New York State schools at the age of 16. Maybe it's because everyone needs to go back to their parents' farm and work. I don't know. But that's ridiculous. President Obama led a big charge to try to get that mandatory to 18 years. I asked all the states to do that. Many did. New York did not. I don't know why. The dropout rate now is only 76%. I'm sorry, graduation rate. Dropout rate is 24% in New York City. 76%. Compare that, though, to 2000, where it was 50%. Dropped down to 46% graduation rate in 2005. It has now gone up. That's a big leap forward. But there is still so much more to go. And organizations like this, 36,000 students out of 1.1 million, got a long way to go. But it's making a difference in each and every one of those kids' lives. And so my honor to be here today to sort of introduce a few people that will introduce other people who are getting honored today. Kids of all backgrounds and communities and income levels need that chance to develop everything, from academics to art and music, but most importantly, confidence in what the future holds, because without them, we're nothing. And it's more than just funding our Social Security payments. It's what kind of country we're going to live in. This video gave me great hope. This organization gives me great hope. You can't do much these days without a college education. 1 out of 3 jobs now requires a college degree, and it's going to only grow in the future. So with that, let's go on to the first award presentation. This is for excellence in education. And to introduce the honoree, I'm going to call on Harriet Cole, who's devoted her career to supporting people as they build their dreams. She coaches entertainers. She's walking up right now, entrepreneurs, business professionals. Harriet has written 7 books. She's written 7 books and has a nationally syndicated advice column. She launched an inspirational and educational initiative 3 years ago called Dream Leapers, which helps people access and activate their own dreams. When Harriet Cole speaks, people listen, or at least they should. She's a lifelong friend of the first honoree, so a perfect choice to introduce Rashid Dilworth Silvera. Please welcome Harriet Cole.
Good afternoon. It's wonderful to be in this space for this very important occasion, and I'm thrilled to honor my friend. Because we have 2 minutes, I've written it down. I first met Rashid Silvera through the magic of his voice. We were standing backstage, awaiting the start of the Congressional Black Caucus fashion show, when I became spellbound by his charisma and intellect. Moments later, he dazzled the audience of several hundred dignitaries with his unique charm and swag. Rashid would go on to sprinkle his magic dust on many by becoming the first Black man to be featured in a Ralph Lauren advertising campaign. You probably remember that. By gracing the cover of GQ magazine as only the 4th Black model ever to do so. And by being featured on many national magazine pages, covers, and ads over all these years. But Rashid's true magic happens in the classroom as he engages students and challenges their young minds. His own love of learning started at a very young age, when as a boy, get this, Rashid studied the dictionary and he memorized virtually every entry when he was still in grade school, hence his uniquely vast vocabulary. To prepare for a lifetime of being a master educator, Rashid, born in Roxbury, Massachusetts, to parents Don Hector and Phyllis Matilda Silvera, attended Williston Academy and graduated from Bennington College with a BA in political science and anthropology. He then went on to get his master's in theological studies at Harvard University, at Harvard Divinity School, and his master's in education from Harvard Graduate School of Education. Rashid started his career in education in 1975 and has worked at several private and public institutions before landing at Rye Country Day School and later Scarsdale High School in the 1980s. At Scarsdale, where Rashid spent most of his career, he distinguished himself as the favorite teacher. Those of you who know. One who contemplated current events out loud with his students, ever challenging them to think dynamically about race, history, and the moment before them. He also helped to establish the Senior Options Program that has offered high school seniors professional internship opportunities in a vast array of industries as a bridge to their college experience. And I personally have mentored students from that program for more than 20 years. Finally, Rashid has personally advised hundreds of families on how to navigate the college process, guiding students to the perfect school for them, and at this moment in time, I must say, at no charge. Rashid says yes to his students, yes to their families, yes to igniting curiosity in the minds and hearts of the next generation. My dear friend Rashid Silvera, for all that you do and all that you are, we salute you. Rashid, it is my honor to bestow upon you the Excellence in Education Award by New York Edge.
Now, is everyone able to hear me? You certainly are able to see me. So, I'm going to try and read a little, feel a little, and share everything that I can, that I'm able to share right now. Thank you, Harriet. Harriet is an old friend who is obviously a very generous person. She's described an individual that hopefully, whose shoes I may be able to fit in comfortably one day. Thank you, H. Thank you. As I look around the room, I see so many happy faces, smiling faces, and I realize that I really am, or will be, preaching to the choir. You folks understand why you're here, and I'm just an extension of that understanding. I was at a New York Edge ceremony last year. I was the invitee of Nico L. Mulle, and that's Nico sitting over there at table 15. A lifelong friend and one of the most generous people I know. He invited me to observe what certain people were trying to do in an effort to lend some kindness to strangers. And that term really stuck with me. It's not that Nico said this, but he expressed it. Because all of us here have been beneficiaries of the kindness of strangers. And that's why almost all of us are no strangers to kindness. So, in meeting Nico, it became apparent to me that I needed to get involved. The whole notion of after school hit home. Tom talked about his upbringing in Miami, and we are kindred spirits and souls in that regard. I too was on the streets for a little bit, and when I say a little bit, I do mean a little bit. Most of that type of attention was not through acclamation, but through watch out for this chap. But I had a family, and I have two representatives of my family who are here from Philadelphia, Robin and her husband, Carlton. And what's so important about that is that Robin's mother turned 100 years old less than a month ago and had an incredible celebration with her little sister who's 96 and all of her little friends in their 90s who were just happily moving about. The concord that cemented these people together was the good works they had done for so many in such a quiet fashion. And these people were not letting their years diminish their inclination to help those who may not see a clear path to an opportunity. And in fact, I was one of those little humans that they helped. And when I say helped, I mean sometimes people have to give you more than one chance. Almost all of us here have had a chance and two chances, but chances are it's not until further down the line, perhaps when no one is watching and you are beholden to no one to be that or be this, is when the traction and the attraction of your potential and your life takes form. There is a particular chap, William Shakespeare, who in Macbeth, I believe it was Act 5, Scene 5, in terms of, yes, it was exactly Act 5. Okay. And he gives Macbeth voice in explaining life, and he says, life is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. That may be congruent with our present time. We may find that leadership has given us sound and fury with no significance, but we should not feel that life is not significant. Life can be as meaningful as we extend our generosity. I look around the room and I look at all this majesty of generosity from my Scarsdale family, from my Rye family, from the family of individuals like that little human sitting over there, that little brown human who did go to Brown, okay? Brown. These little people who took this much of what I had to offer and gave me back so much more than they had borrowed. So it is in this context that I say to these children and to us, all of us, legacies of this majesty of generosity, being given the opportunity to be or to give kindness to strangers. I say that we should not, as T.S. Eliot, I'm not a fan of his politics, but his words were just completely poignant at this point. We should not cease from exploration, for at the end of our exploring, we should return where we started and to know the place for the first time. Let that place be generosity. Let it be sensitivity. Let it be an attention to scholarship, an attention to sportsmanship, some attention to citizenship. Let us give that which is in the deepest pocket that we possess, the truth of who we are. So if you would just let me recite this poem that Nico basically encouraged me to feel, and that Harriet has heard me say, this is who we are. Come to the edge. It's too high. Come to the edge. We might fall. Come to the edge. And they came, and we pushed, and they flew. Thank you.
He's learning how to speak. Really great. Getting better. Got better since the last. Rashid, that was beautiful. That was really beautiful. That really was. And you're dressed for spring, and we're happy about that. That was really magnificent. Thank you very much, sir. Our next presenter, is Ben Stacks, a commercial real estate banker for 25 years, most recently with Bank United. In addition to his Big J job, he also serves on many industry boards, member of the Large Load Lenders Roundtable, and is a guest lecturer at the New York University School of Real Estate. But what you might not have known is that he has a big connection to New York Edge. Living in Rye, Rashid is your neighbor, and like you, Rachel Gazdick is New York Edge's incoming CEO, also graduated from Syracuse University. So there is kismet here. Ben, the degrees of separation for you today here are pretty small as well. Please come up and introduce our Gold Star Award honoree, Ben.
Thanks, Bill. Go Cuse and go Rye. It's hard to follow those wonderful comments as a lowly banker. I'll press on. It's truly an honor to stand here today to both support New York Edge's terrific work with public school students across the 5 boroughs, and also to celebrate Tom Cornish and Bank United's philanthropic work. 25 years of giving all students the chance to succeed in school and in life is the essence of what we should all want for the future leaders of our great city. Bank United believes in the education of youth in the communities we serve, especially in New York and Florida. Our corporate and philanthropic work is as important to us as it is to our clients. I know this is true for all of you, otherwise you would not be here today in support of New York Edge. Thank you very much for your attendance. Tom Cornish is one of the most philanthropic and inspirational men I've ever met. His life mission is to ensure people have access to education, teachers that care about their futures, and networks to make their dreams a reality. Tom's story of how education shaped his life is only one that he can tell. What I can tell you is that Bank United and Tom are proud to support the work of New York Edge and the 36,000 students that participate in programming each year. We should all do our part as individuals and corporations to help ensure equity in education. Please join me in honoring Tom Cornish, New York Edge's Gold Star honoree.
So you learn things in life. One of them I've learned today is to never follow Rashid. Next time, I go first. So I also echo everyone's comments. I would like to thank people for coming today. This is a fabulous, fabulous turnout. I am deeply grateful for the number of friends, colleagues, clients that we have here that have come here to support the organization and also to support me. I was introduced, and the bank was introduced to this organization by our dear friend Francis, I guess about 8 months ago. And his passion for the organization, his passion for the commitment to children's education and improving the lives of people is extremely impressive. I have Sunday night, I was sitting on my bed, and I have a lot of books by my bed. One of them is a book that Francis wrote, and also one of them is a book about Winston Churchill. And I happened to be reading the Churchill book that night, and there was a quote in it by Churchill that reminded me very much of Francis, and I told him that I was going to embarrass him today, so I'm going to proceed to do that right now and talk to you a little bit about the quote. And Winston Churchill said, "A man is not great until he commits his efforts to great causes." And Francis, you're a great man. So the people of New York are better for the work that you're doing. So my interest in public education, I wanted to spend a few minutes telling you a little bit of a story and expand on my comments in the video. So I'm gonna tell the story. I'm gonna start at the end, go to the beginning, and then end up in the middle. Now that's not usually the way you tell a story, but the context of it will make sense to you as I go forward. So as you look at me today on this stage, I'm not as sartorially flairful as Rashid is, but I'm a 60-year-old man. I've had the great fortune in life to be a C-level officer at 3 NYSE companies. In the course of my career, I've had the opportunity to be a successful entrepreneur, to sell companies that I was the CEO of, to private equity funds, to Fortune 500 companies. I've had the opportunity to chair 5 boards during my career, and they've all been around things that I'm passionate about, which are public education, children's health, and economic development. So the stories that you've heard today about the trajectory of people's lives and the possibilities of people's lives is a story that I can tell you that I have personally lived myself. And I can share with you that what I'm about to talk to you about is not really as much about me as it is about us and the work that New York Edge does and how that work can embody itself in the future of our society. New York City is the capital of the world. It's the greatest city on earth. And there's absolutely, you cannot build a great city without building great public education and supporting disadvantaged youth. So I'm going to take you back now. I gave you the end, so here's the beginning. So I was born in 1958 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. When I was 2 years old, myself, my brother, and my sister were abandoned in January of 1960. January in Milwaukee is not a good time to be abandoned. It is really cold. And so my family, who I never saw my brother and sister again after that day, we were turned over to foster care. And by a tremendously interesting coincidence, we lived in a neighborhood called Brewer Hill in Milwaukee. And Brewer Hill, you probably know Milwaukee has a lot of breweries, was called Brewer Hill because everyone who worked in the breweries lived there. It was a very working class neighborhood. Well, there was a couple that were the super of the buildings that we lived in that were unable to have children. So they knew me. For some reason, out of the 3, they liked me the best. I'm not sure why, but they took a liking to me, and they applied for to be foster parents and go through an adoption process for me when I was 2 years old. So after about a month, unfortunately, my dad-to-be suddenly passed away. And it left my mom, who had not completed high school and was suffering from early arthritis in her 30s, with the prospect of caring for a 2-year-old child without any income, money, resources, or ability to care for that child. So as you would expect, the Department of Health and Rehabilitative Services asked for me back, and I was going to be remanded back into foster care. So the next morning, she and I were on a Greyhound bus together, and off we went. And we started a 6-year odyssey that took us from Milwaukee to Indianapolis to Kansas City to Oklahoma City to Dallas and finally to Miami. One thing I learned in life, if you're going to be poor, be warm. You know, it's better than being poor and cold. So we ended up in Miami when I was 8 years old in 1966, and my mom, who at that time was suffering from much more serious arthritis, worked a variety of different jobs. Generally, her steady work was being a housekeeper at a hotel. I can assure you today that I am the best tipper in any hotel that I am ever at, because I know exactly what it's like to live from tips. So we grew up in public housing in Miami. We grew up in a neighborhood, if anybody's that's familiar with Miami, called West Little River. West Little River was a very, very blighted area. In my neighborhood, violence was a daily event. Drugs were a daily event. Gangs were a daily event. I spent the youth of my life in that neighborhood. It was a tough neighborhood. We had a tough time every single day. We probably lived in 20 places. We were evicted 6 times. There's nothing quite like coming home from school with your buddies and finding your clothes on the street to let you know that you're not an advantaged person. 2 times we were homeless. One time, by the grace of God, a person was nice to us who owned a television repair shop in West Little River, and my mom and I slept on the floor of a television repair shop for 6 months. I went to inner city schools. I went to 2 schools that had a high school graduation rate of less than 20%. Somewhere along the way, when you're young and you're poor, you go from not really understanding how bad your situation is to understanding how bad